Yes, this is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. Trust me, I'm like a smart person. I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius. I had the best words. Tolerated. I know words. Mike Pounds. I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges of the investigation. But there's no better word than stupid. Anonymous, really anonymous. I'm very highly educated. One of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water. I had the best words. God bless the United States.
Around the nation, UIT Nation, Jeff Alderson here with you. And God bless these United States, as Trump so eloquently put it. It's Tuesday. Welcome to the show. Boy, do we have an interesting show for you guys today. We've got all sorts of shenanigans going on in the White House. Obviously disastrous. We've got that. Including, of course, President Trump getting afraid of a couple of reporters. Interesting. We've got that. We have, of course, Donald Trump losing his mind over the idea of a President Pelosi. If, of course, the president and the vice president were overtaken by coronavirus and were unable to do their jobs, that's who would step in. And so, a little upset about that. We have the House Democrats unveiling another $3 trillion relief package. I'm going to go into some of the details that we know so far and kind of give you my thought process on it, on what it looks like. We also have Trump getting involved in the special election being held in the California 25th. That's interesting stuff. And how he feels about black people voting. Fun. And then we have some good news on the Keystone XL pipeline. That's still a fight that's ongoing. And we just had another, albeit I'm assuming temporary victory in this. But look, for every minute that Keystone XL pipeline is not carrying tar sands is a win. So we've got that interesting stuff today. We're going to have a good show. I'm a little low energy today. I did not get much sleep. My cat kept me up all night. I know, kind of weird, but they want in and then they want out and they want in, they want out. My cat has figured out that the doorknob is how you get in. And so he literally hangs off the doorknob trying to somehow open it. So that's always a fun thing to wake up to. And then what's in and then what's out. So yeah, the joy of owning a cat. So for those of you who are asking how the kitten is doing, no longer a kitten, but a cat. Okay, anyway. Fun times. Before I get into the stories, please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Also, remember this weekend, on Friday, I'm going to be talking to Mike Figueredo of the Humanist Report. So we're going to be going and probably discussing the failures of the Democratic Party, what we should be doing, of course, going forward, if third party is the way to go. We'll have an interesting discussion on a lot of this stuff. And so, Mike's a great guy. So we're going to sit down. We're going to do Here's the Thing. That should be really fun. It'll drop, of course, on Saturday for the patrons and on Sunday for everyone else. So I'm looking forward to that. And then the following week, of course, we've got Michael Brooks on the show. And I'm looking forward to all that stuff. So lots and lots of fun. Okay. Anyway, that said, please like and share the stream, and we'll dive into the show. All right. Yeah. I'm just reading that. Hold on a second here in the chat. Let's see. What was it? Low energy, sleepy. I've got low energy. Very sad, very sleepy, very tired. That's me today. So yes, I'm very low energy. I got the Jeb energy going today.
Please clap.
Exactly. Pretty soon they'll be kicking me out the door later on, but not now. All right, now let's get into it. Now, we all know that President Donald Trump has some incredibly thin skin, and see, that's what happens when I don't get a lot of sleep. So we all know that President Donald Trump has incredibly thin skin, and see, I can't do it. Can't do it today. I cannot find the correct words. I know words. You know what?
Mike Pounds.
Exactly. I know words. Damn. That's a great start today. Great start. So we all know President Donald Trump has some incredibly thin skin. And of course, it was on display at a press briefing on Monday.
That the U.S. is doing far better than any other country when it comes to testing.
Yes.
Why does that matter? Why is this a global competition to you if everyday Americans are still losing their lives and we're still seeing more cases every day?
Well, they're losing their lives everywhere in the world. And maybe that's a question you should ask China. Don't ask me, ask China that question, okay? When you ask them that question, you may get a very unusual answer. Yes, behind you, please.
Sir, why are you saying that to me specifically?
I'm telling you, I'm not saying it specifically to anybody. I'm saying it to anybody that would ask a nasty question like that.
That's not a nasty question.
Please go ahead.
Why does it matter?
Okay, anybody else? Please, go ahead in the back, please.
I have two questions.
No, it's okay.
But
We'll
you
go
pointed
here.
to me. I have two questions, Mr.
Next,
President.
next, please.
But you called on me.
I did, and you didn't respond, and now I'm calling on
Sorry, I just
the
wanted
young
to,
lady in the back, please.
I just wanted to let my colleague
Okay.
finish. But can I ask you a
Ladies and
question,
gentlemen, thank you very much. Appreciate
But you
it.
called
Thank you very much.
Sad baby. Oh, hey, what's wrong? You want to answer the question? Oh, why not? I mean, why are you asking about China when it comes to testing? Why are you asking an Asian reporter to go and ask China about this? I mean, well, of course, we all know the answer to this. Of course, we all know the answer. But here's the thing: we need to test more Americans. What does China have to do with testing Americans? I mean, whatever happened to America first? If you want America to come out of this crisis, then of course you would push aggressive testing, because it would show how far the virus really has spread. Oh, but right, that looks really bad for Trump on a optics level. I mean, oh, look how many people have got the virus here in America. Instead of over 1 million, it could be 5 million. Oh, that's terrible for Trump's reelection. Ignore, deflect. Run away, flee, get out of here. Trump casts escape. It is very effective. So look, the problem is we've got thanks to Donald Trump's terrible leadership, we have more cases of coronavirus than the next 5 countries combined. That's disastrous. We have hit over 80,000 deaths in this country, and that's not counting the second wave. That's going to hit us like a ton of bricks. So here's the thing, right? Now, what got under Donald Trump's skin the most is a reporter that's actually working together with other reporters. Now, you noticed during that exchange, right, that these reporters actually went and supported each other. Normally, the press fights each other for the spotlight when it comes to these Trump pressers. But now you actually had three reporters that actually backed each other. Of course, you had a woman that asked a question. That's CBS News correspondent Weijia Zhang. I'm pretty sure I did not say her name right. And then you also had Caitlin Collins of CNN and Yamiche Alcindor of PBS. They all backed each other up. And it's kind of amazing that that happened because normally, as I mentioned before, the press falls over itself to get into the spotlight and to ask questions and to try to, of course, one up Trump because that creates news and all that stuff. Instead of reporting news, a lot of the reporters like to make news. So now, but here they are defending their Asian colleague. And of course, nothing gets under the president's skin more than the press doing that. In fact, later on, he tweeted out a video of this exchange with a comment, quote, "The lamestream media is truly out of control. Look at how they work, conspire together." No, in this case, I mean, I guess if you want to call them defending each other, conspiring, okay, but they were backing each other up because of Donald Trump's racist insinuation that the Asian reporter needs to go and ask China about this. I mean, it's ridiculous. Now, if only we could have seen this, and this comes with my this is my criticism of the press under all the other presidents, right? If only we had seen the press backing each other up during the Obama administration or during the Bush administration and being more critical. But instead, the press beat the drums of war. They helped the administration in the case of George W. Bush to bring us into two disastrous wars, Iraq and Afghanistan. When the administration was clearly lying to us, the press was reporting that no, what he was saying is true. The intelligence, of course, says that, yeah, they have weapons of mass destruction. We should believe the president, et cetera, et cetera. And so nobody was critical. And the press was not doing its job. Now, when you have Donald Trump, who is now an undesirable when it comes to the establishment, now's the time to question him. Now's the time to, actually work together to try to get the truth. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? And here's the thing about Trump. Yes, he is considered rude by the establishment, right? But at the same time, he champions the same kind of conservative policies that the establishment loves. And so, I mean, the fact of the matter is the press is looking for a reason to like Trump, to suck up to him. They really do. I mean, remember Brian Williams? Oh my God, this is the time when he was launching missiles at another country. Oh, this is the time where the president has become presidential. Like they kept waiting for that opportunity to call him presidential. They want to so badly. But Trump, I mean, look, Trump doesn't give him a chance because he and his electorate, they do get off on attacking the press and making Donald Trump out to be a victim. I mean, all the time, Donald Trump is always a victim. Of course, he's not a victim, but he invites these attacks because it just feeds into his victimhood mentality, right? And his victimhood mindset. And it really, really plays well with conservative voters who don't trust the media, have never trusted the media. And so, making an enemy out of the press and then calling them the enemy of the people is incredibly helpful to Donald Trump, who constructs his own reality. And the press is diametrically opposed to him being able to create his own reality. And so, yeah, of course, right? Not only that, but of course, Trump has the thinnest skin imaginable. I mean, I've never seen somebody in public office have such a thin skin. It's almost transparent. So now I wonder if they keep doing that, if the press actually decides to get together and challenge his narratives, will Trump no longer be doing any of these press conferences? And if that's the case, good, because maybe then we can focus on more important things. President Trump really doesn't want to wear a mask. He doesn't want to do the basic minimum to prevent other people around him from getting coronavirus. Now, following the CDC announcing the updated mask recommendations last month, the president had said, quote, this, "I don't think that I'm going to be doing it." Well, I mean, that's fairly clear. He's not going to do it. Now, he gets into details when he talks to some advisors to him, where he says that he believes wearing one would, quote, "send the wrong message." Now, what message is that? Well, there's a couple of different messages. One is, according to the administration and two campaign officials, the president said doing so would make it seem like he's preoccupied with health during a pandemic, which would make sense. But instead of reopening the nation's economy, which we shouldn't do. I'm sorry, we shouldn't do. It's not yet time. I mean, already there are places that have just considered themselves, rid of the coronavirus that are now having deadly second waves, the beginning of it. We're not even the first wave. We're not over that yet. And so second wave is going to be even more of a disaster. So, but the other reason, of course, and I think this is the one that makes the most sense and is the most likely, is that it would make him, quote unquote, look bad. Trump has told confidants, according to MSN, that he fears he would look ridiculous in a mask and the image would appear in negative ads, according to one of the officials. It would look bad. Donald Trump in a mask. No. Anything that covers up that face is a good thing. I'm just saying. Cover. The more, you know what? The bigger mask, the better. All right? For Trump. He needs a full face mask. Put the guy in a hazmat suit. And not for his own health, for ours. But okay, anyway. So look, kidding aside, this is Donald Trump 101. Again, the masks aren't to protect the wearer. They're to protect everyone else. As just breathing in an enclosed space can spread the virus. They've done studies. And they've, done contact tracing where people that would, breathe, just exhale, that have coronavirus, and that, coronavirus, those virus particles would end up going and cycling through the air conditioning system and infect other people in the room or in even other rooms. And so, yeah, wearing a mask actually is to protect other people. And if everybody's wearing masks, then we're all protecting each other while also protecting ourselves. So it makes sense, right? So now Trump doesn't want to do this. He doesn't want to wear the mask. And what's worse about that is that his decisions are affecting everyone else. They're affecting the culture in the White House and also the culture among conservatives. White House aides say the president hasn't told them not to wear them, but few do. Some Republican allies have asked Trump campaign how it would be viewed by the White House if they were spotted wearing a mask, according to two campaign officials who spoke on the condition of anonymity. So now these guys are worried again about hey, look, how's it going to look for the Trump campaign if I get caught wearing a mask? I'm kind of worried about, my health and the health of, my family and friends, but also I don't want to make Donald Trump look bad because, because that would be bad for me. Look, there's a lot of people around Trump that are only attracted to the power. And because he's president of the United States, obviously he's got a lot of power. And so, yeah, you cozy up to that. And the one thing that Donald Trump can't stand is when people are disloyal or they don't, follow in his example. And so not wearing a mask follows in his example. And so there's this culture as well in the White House among these conservatives of selfishness. And of course, it's because the fish rots from the head down. And now the mask for a lot of Republicans has become a political statement. I mean, you got MAGA guys who are saying, "Oh, I'm not going to wear a mask." And then they're threatening to shoot people over it. And then you actually did have somebody get shot, a security guard in Flint, who was murdered for telling somebody to put on a mask. I mean, I think some of this is a result of Trump not taking a strong enough stance to saying, hey, no, look, guys, wearing a mask is a smart thing to do. Just do it. Instead, he's like, you don't have to wear a mask. I'm not going to wear a mask. It's going to be fine. The virus will disappear. Maybe you should inject some Lysol and put a light bulb in your butt and all that. I mean, the very strong studies that we're looking into that, but you don't have to wear a mask. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And so you got Republicans, by the way, ignoring the science because Donald Trump, again, questions the science about this and questions people like Dr. Anthony Fauci and Dr. Birx. And look, Dr. Birx basically did everything that she could to try to appease Donald Trump. Even that's not enough to get him to basically listen to her. And he's been urging the reopening of the country when we're clearly not ready for a reopening. And so it's disastrous. Not only that, but he's tweeting things out like, been tweeting things like liberate Michigan, liberate the states. And it's, of course, for gross political reason, right? And then these Republicans believe that it's a plot, these lockdowns are a plot to take your freedom. Not to say that there aren't bad actors out there who would use a crisis like this to violate your civil rights. Of course, right? But that's not what's happening in America right now. No. Not being able to get your hair done is not a violation of your civil rights. I mean, look, the other day, we had like members of Meal Team 6 armed with long guns and a bazooka at frickin' Subway, all right? It seems like your rights are still intact if you're a gun-toting right-wing Republican. They went out. They didn't get arrested. They didn't wear masks. They weren't social distancing. And they were wearing their guns. What rights are being infringed upon, really? Really? I mean, look, in Michigan, which is supposedly tyranny, right? There's no enforcement against not wearing a mask or social distancing. They're not enforcing this. And so what freedoms have you lost? Really? And by the way, that bazooka, sub launcher. I'm just saying. That's what I'd use it for. Okay. Launch some subs to your friends. All right. Anyway, I know this is a serious topic, but I just can't help but think like these guys, like, what are you doing? You're being ridiculous. Why do you take a bazooka into a freaking Subway? What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? Okay, anyway. So now, Lindsay Marr is a Virginia Tech engineering professor, and she has experience in airborne transmission of viruses. And so she would be a little bit of an expert, right? She has a slightly different take, but one that does make sense when it comes to talking about why conservatives are doing what they're doing. She says, quote, there's such a strong culture of individualism that even if it's going to help protect them, people don't want the government telling them what to do. I talked about this before, right? I talked about how, hey, look, people don't like being told what to do, especially by the government. I get it. But a lot of people will do, of course, what's best for them out of their own volition. But there is a certain subset of the population that will not, that will decide to share ridiculous conspiracy theories on YouTube and, not socially distance and then put people at risk, put themselves at risk, put other people at risk. Hey, man, look, if it just affected you, I would say go ahead. You're not harming it. If you're not harming anybody, go ahead. Don't wear a mask. Get corona all day, right? But unfortunately, this is a public health issue. And so, my health is important. My, family's health is important. Your family's health is important. So why not just do the minimum required and put a freaking mask on in public or stay home? It's not that hard. It's not like anybody's asking you to give up your guns, which clearly you have not if you're carrying them around. And by the way, if you want to go out there and carry your guns around, right, in public, well, then wear a mask and keep 6 feet away from other people, and you can carry your freaking guns everywhere. Doesn't matter. Now, one more thing. Again, Trump's not wearing a mask. Mike Pence isn't wearing a mask. Barely anybody at the White House was wearing a mask. That is until Pence's press secretary, Katie Miller, tested positive for COVID-19, as well as some Donald Trump's personal valets and numerous Secret Service personnel. So now there is a requirement for people at the White House to wear masks. But unfortunately, they just had a press conference earlier today, and a lot of them did wear masks for the camera. Donald Trump, of course, didn't. But a lot of people wore masks for the camera. And then when the cameras were off, or at least the live broadcast was over, they took their masks right off. So what was the point? Is this your show for the camera? I mean, what are you doing? I mean, and look, here's the thing. I talked about this yesterday, how I think Donald Trump thinks he's immune, right? I think that he believes that his good genes will save him from COVID-19, right? And then you combine that with his ridiculous vanity, and then here you got a situation where it's almost certain that at some point he's going to get coronavirus, and then he's going to be telling everybody, nobody knew, nobody could have known how contagious the corona was. But now I know everything about corona. Nobody knows about getting sick with corona as much as I do. I mean, we'll see what happens. Moving on. Speaking of Trump possibly getting sick in the White House, it appears that President Trump just found out that if he and Mike Pence were incapacitated by COVID-19, that it wouldn't be a successor that somebody, that Donald Trump would be able to pick himself. It would be the Speaker of the House, which would be Nancy Pelosi. That's why he just flipped out on Twitter. In a response to a tweet from John Solomon that read this, that reads, quote, Pelosi would be third in line to serve as president if Trump and Pence became incapacitated by COVID-19. To which he responded that we must be very careful. Crazy Nancy would be a total disaster, and the USA will never be a communist country. Now, look, I'm going to get to the absurdity of conflating Nancy Pelosi to being anywhere near the left. But first, the Presidential Succession Act of 1947 makes very clear that the Speaker of the House is third in line to the presidency should both the president and vice president become too ill to carry out their duties or die. And look, we just recently had a situation where members of the White House have been tested positive for COVID-19. You had Mike Pence's press secretary, Katie Miller, wife of Stephen Miller, getting sick with COVID-19. And you had Trump's personal valets and a number of Secret Service officers coming down and testing positive for the virus. It's spreading around the White House. The virus is literally in the White House. So that's a concern. Now, the act states, the Presidential Succession Act of 1947 says in case of the removal of the president from office or of his death, resignation or inability to discharge the powers and duties of the said office, the same shall devolve on the vice president, and the Congress may by law provide for the case of removal, death, resignation, or inability, both the president and vice president. So that's a situation in which we could see, of course, a President Pelosi. Yikes. Now, look, people near Pence and Trump, of course, as I mentioned, had gotten sick, and yet both of them have declined to wear a mask. Because masks have become a political signal of being manly and strong, apparently. Like, I'm not going to let the government tell me what to do. I don't know why I'm doing the Trump voice for, like, MAGA guys. But, like, the government got to tell me what to do. I'm not going to wear a mask. No, Real Americans don't wear masks. We carry our guns and we go to Subway. Yeah, okay, man. All right. So it's a political statement against, like, I guess what they call the creeping authoritarianism of a temporary lockdown where the government's literally paying you to sit on your butt and watch Netflix. Man, if that's tyranny, that's kind of nice. Actually, I'd like that. But okay. So now it's a sign, of course, that these people don't care about other people, would rather spread their COVID around to everybody, and don't believe in facts, logic, or science. And in fact, I've seen science where COVID's a hoax. Doesn't exist. It's not real. None of the 80,000 people that have died in America from COVID have actually died, crisis actors, etc. Whatever crazy right-wing nonsense they come up with to basically bury the fact that, look, under any president, this would be an absolute disaster. But under Trump, it's actually worse than it could have been. And so that's one of the big problems, is that it's worse than it could have been. So now, to Pelosi, if she became president, and again, this is making everyone's head explode, because leftists like myself or like you, and then of course you got Trumpers that flip out for the completely different reason. But in reality, look, would she be competent? Yes. Would she do anything bold, like Medicare for all or Green New Deal, or really anything to change the post-COVID landscape into something better? No, absolutely not. No, she would be establishment, continues with the status quo. That's the problem, right? I mean, her big, bold ideas were allowing the government to pay part of COBRA. COBRA, of course, being the not the Cobra Commander or anything like that, but a continuation of your employee-sponsored health insurance, employer-sponsored health insurance, right? They would pay part of the employer part, whereas you would still end up having to pay your premiums, copays, and deductibles to keep your insurance in the case that you were laid off as a result of COVID, right? So you would still have those costs despite not actually having a job. Well, congratulations. How bold. Whereas, of course, progressives, leftists are saying, hey, let's get a Medicare for all system, actually, and ensure that everybody has guaranteed health care. And not this like weak stuff from, I think it was Joe Kennedy that tweeted the other day. It's like, no one should have to go bankrupt from medical bills without a lawyer by their side. What are you talking about? Lawyer, get the F out of here. Nobody should have to go bankrupt from medical bills, period. Period. End of sentence. You know how we get there? By eliminating medical bills completely. Medicare for all. We didn't stutter. That's what we want. But anyway, so now she's also been using her power as speaker to muzzle progressives in Congress, of course, with unanimous consent votes that prevent progressive members, of course, from putting any sort of progressive priorities to these coronavirus relief bills, right? Because if somebody tries to slip in something progressive with this unanimous consent, well, you would have a Republican, which they have a minority in the House. Any one Republican could stand up and say, shoot down that bill. Not going to be in favor of it. In fact, Thomas Massie has already done so earlier to some coronavirus release bills. So that's why they had to rush to get another one out that was just a gigantic bailout. Pelosi could have changed those rules. She decided not to. She also dragged her feet on remote voting, which, of course, allowed these unanimous consent votes to happen. She also appointed Representative Donna Shalala to be her designee on a board to oversee this massive corporate bailout fund. The fund that, of course, could be leveraged many, many times to trillions of dollars in corporate in just corporate handouts. And that's it. And of course, Shalala has her own issues. She is not aggressive about this, about policing this, about ending this corruption, because she herself has some issues with corruption. She has violated ethics rules by failing to disclose hundreds of financial transactions that she has undertaken during her year or so in office. So, interesting. Shady financial transactions hidden. And yet, she gets to be on this board to oversee the Treasury Department handing out trillions of dollars to corporations. Right. Laughable. Or it would be if it wasn't this enormous robbery from the taxpayer. She also had numerous chances to exercise her authority and try to get progressive policy into these stimulus bills. Like, for example, here you have a bill that came out last month. It was Representative Ro Khanna working with Representative Tim Ryan. So this is a joint bill by the moderate and progressive wing of the Democratic Party in the House. And so this had moderates that were willing to come on board. This was a $2,000 a month UBI stimulus, right? That would have made it into the package. Pelosi is like, nope, not at all. You also had bills that would cancel student debt. She allowed Republicans to tank it. She allowed them by doing these unanimous consent. Actually, she didn't even put those in the bill. And here's what she should have done, right? If she were actually interested in doing anything to help the American people, pass that legislation, send it off to the Senate, and let them vote against student loan debt cancellation and $2,000 a month UBI. Let them do that, right? But like the Republicans, her focus was on massive giveaways to the rich, while allowing some crumbs to trickle down to working people. So you want to call her communist? Communist? Really? Please. Communist. No. Republicans and corporate Democrats give out more socialism, since we're conflating terms here, right, than anyone could ever dream. But of course, it's corporate socialism. So when it comes to members of Congress, it's fine. Well, that's our donors. And we have to, give our donors a return on investment. But if you try to do something for the people, Pelosi is going to be the first one there to squash it, to make sure that it doesn't happen. Remember, her big idea before, we ended up getting the $1,200 a month when the first, was it phase 3 coronavirus stimulus was being debated, is she wanted refundable tax credits as part of the coronavirus relief bill. Refundable tax credits. Donald Trump and Steve Mnuchin were the ones calling for the $1,200 direct check. In that case, the Republicans, Donald Trump was to the left of Nancy Pelosi. So I don't know what the hell you're talking about when you call her a communist. That's ridiculous. No. Leftists actually wish that we had a leader, the Speaker of the House, that was a member of the left. We don't. No. Nancy Pelosi is a Republican on economic issues and a centrist on social issues. But still, the fear in Donald Trump of someone halfway competent leading instead of him, and more importantly, him not being able to pick someone like Ivanka or Jared Kushner to go and take over, well, that's more than enough to make him absolutely lose it. Now, is it enough to get him to start wearing a mask? To, put his health over his vanity? Well, that remains to be seen. All right. So now, speaking of the House, we have some details of the new Phase 4 stimulus. House Democrats have just unveiled the latest round of legislation to provide Americans with economic relief. So now this is being dubbed Coronavirus Relief Phase 4. And it adds up to about $3 trillion. So the House is expected to pass this $3 trillion bill on Friday, along party lines, of course, as Democrats, according to The Hill, seek to put pressure on Republicans to start negotiating for additional measures to contain the impact of the outbreak on workers. So right now, you had Democrats that have been working on this for the last couple of weeks, and Republicans saying, nah, let's wait and see. Now, that's Mitch McConnell. That's a lot of the Republican leaders are saying wait and see. Kevin McCarthy as well. And then you've got some Republicans that are floating things like the Eagle Plan, which would literally ask you to borrow against your own retirement from Social Security so that for a one-time payment, right, of up to, depending on the bill, $5,000 or the idea, $5,000 to $10,000. It's not an actual concrete bill. It's just a proposal. So that's kind of what the Republicans are looking at. They're not talking about another round of stimulus. They're saying, again, wait and see. And here's how we can help workers by screwing them over. Donald Trump, of course, is in favor of a payroll tax cut, which doesn't help the over 30 million people that are no longer employed. You can't benefit from the payroll tax cut if you're not getting a paycheck. So, I mean, it's ridiculous, right? So now this bill, however, includes $10 billion in extra funding for food stamps, $150 million to help local food banks meet increased demand. It also includes measures to help homeowners and renters struggling to pay their mortgages or rent due to lost income. So, look, I don't know what kind of assistance that will, or what form that assistance will take. There's no, big details on that yet. But it is good that they are at least addressing the fact that people cannot pay the rent. Now, there's also $100 billion set aside to provide emergency assistance for low-income renters that are at risk of eviction. Now, as far as direct payments go to workers, well, look, there were some pretty good plans. For example, you had Tim Ryan and Ro Khanna, moderate and progressive, getting together and floating the idea of, $2,000 a month stimulus payments, form of a UBI, for at least 6 months. You also had in the Senate, Bernie Sanders working together with Kamala Harris and Ed Markey to push a bill that would, again, do about the same thing, give every American $2,000 a month for at least the next 6 months. And so is that going to make it into this legislation? No. Individuals making up to $75,000 have been eligible for a maximum of $1,200, with those making up to $99,000 eligible for a smaller prorated amount. That was the original CARES Act or coronavirus stage 3. Under the Democrats' proposal, there would be one second round of direct payments of $1,200 per family member or up to $6,000 per household. So basically just one more $1,200 check. Bold. Now, the bill also includes, and this is where most of the funding goes to, $915 billion for state, local, territorial, and tribal governments. That is the top priority for Democrats. They've been trying to get this funding for quite some time. And then they would also allocate another $755 million for DC to assist with financial impacts from the pandemic. It also provides $75 billion for coronavirus testing, contact tracing, and other measures to monitor the spread of COVID-19, as well as $100 billion in grants for hospitals, medical providers to reimburse healthcare-related expenses, an additional $25 billion for the post office to help make up for lost revenue, as well as $3.5 billion for grants to states to make contingency plans for this year's federal elections. Now, one more thing that it adds is there's a rules change that will allow lawmakers to vote remotely and conduct committee work virtually. So that would actually help. And so, look, it's not as if that this bill doesn't involve some pretty good things. I mean, the funding for the states is absolutely necessary to help the states continue to do their lockdowns and ramp up testing as they're supposed to do. But, I mean, where's the help for the workers? Yes, increased food stamps is good, but we really should be having a $2,000 a month UBI stimulus. Why that's not in there? Well, it has to do, of course, with Nancy Pelosi, who's trying to get Republicans on board. Are Republicans on board? No. Already, House Minority Whip Steve Scalise called this legislation a, quote, partisan spending bill full of liberal wish items. So already, look, Nancy Pelosi has gone, fairly conservative on some of the members of this. Some of the items in this bill, right? And that's still too far for Republicans. So you're not going to get Republican support. So what do you do instead? Well, you go as progressive as you can and then embarrass Republicans. You force Senate Republicans to vote on a bill that involves things like more direct cash payments for Americans, which has proven to be quite popular. I know. And then you embarrass them politically. And maybe get a few of them to go, okay, yeah, all right, we'll vote in favor of this time. But they're not going to do that. Nancy Pelosi's not going to do that. She cares about the donors. And look, the donors got their bailout already. This is more crumbs. And so it's unfortunate, of course, to see that this is not, again, there's good pieces in it, but it's not good enough. And she's not doing what's necessary politically to try to get this passed. So, as usual, a little bit of weakness from the Democrats. All right. I'm going to take a quick break. We'll come back. We got more stories for you guys today. So stay right here. We have, of course, Donald Trump versus voting. That's always fun. And if we've got time, Keystone XL. We'll be right back. Stay right here around the nation.
Mike Pounds.
Welcome back to the show. Around the nation right here. TBT Nation, Jeff Waldorf here with you. All right. So we got some super chats here that I want to read. Jedi Protector says, feels like karma to happen to that snake. I'm not sure who he's referring to. Could be Donald Trump. Not sure. So I was earlier in the show. Name withheld said would have made it more epic as if Hua Zhejiang would have said, "Is this your king?" as Trump ran away. That would have been fun. I would have enjoyed that as well. I want to thank Evil Yoda, by the way, for joining as a channel member. David Richardson says, spilled a mini golf course in the White House, hermetically sealed bunker, lock Trump in there. At least then, he likely won't catch the virus. I like how you're looking out for him, man. It's good stuff. And Star Trek says, hello, kitty. There's no kitty in here today, but I will say hi for you later. All right. Let's see. Oh, other channel member, by the way, that I want to thank is Amadou Diallo. So thank you. You want to join channel membership, of course. Channel members, by the way, I believe that they don't get ads, or is that YouTube Red members? I'm not entirely sure, or YouTube Premium. But regardless, if you want to join, hit the join button below to become a channel member. Other way to help, of course, is patreon.com/TYTNation. And I want to thank, of course, McMahon FR and Iona Morgan. So those are our two patrons of the day and channel members. All right. So let's move on. Let's go to voting. Now, President Donald Trump is not happy about a new voting location opening in an LA suburb. Why? It's because there happens to be a large black population. Now, over the weekend, Donald Trump himself got involved in a special election in California's 25th congressional district. Now, this is a special election that is actually happening today on Tuesday. So now this was former Representative Katie Hill's seat, and there was a lot of national interest in this race. And it's because, of course, there were a lot of people running for this seat. Katie Hill, of course, had resigned. I'm not really going to get into the details of that story, but she was basically forced out by Pelosi, who said what had happened had embarrassed the Democratic Party. So now she steps down. She endorses Christy Smith. Christy Smith, of course, is the establishment candidate. And so you had people like Cenk Uygur that was running for that seat. He obviously did not win. He got crushed by the establishment, and we'll be honest, and he was honest about that as well. You also had a crazy race in the Republican side with George Papadopoulos. And at one time, Mike Cernovich was also considering running. Again, crazy race, right? A lot of different people on different sides. And so now, that primary is essentially over. And now you have Christy Smith versus Mike Garcia. So now Gavin Newsom, as governor of California, he decided that now that we're having an election, that he would open up a new polling site in Lancaster that's north of LA. Now, this is something actually that both parties have been asking for. And now Trump, because of this, is going to throw a fit. So he tweeted this. In California, the Democrats, who fought like crazy to get all mail-in only ballots and succeeded, have just opened a voting booth in the most Democrat area in the state. They're trying to steal another election. It's all rigged out there. These votes must not count. Scam. So I guess the only votes that should count are Republican votes, right? Well, if that's the case, then actually Lancaster would be a perfect area for Donald Trump. It's actually considered more of the 25th district is more of a purple district. But nonetheless, in Lancaster, they elected 3 Republicans, including the mayor, Rex Paris, who was in favor of this. So now local Democrats said, hey, look, we understand there's COVID-19, right? But black voters need a place to go if they decide that they want to go in person, right? We at least need to have that option since we closed a lot of other polling places as a result of coronavirus. Rex Paris was like, sure, yeah. In fact, here's the statement. Quote, this is something the county should fix immediately. Paris told a local news outlet last week, there should not even be the appearance of affecting the outcome by limiting the ability to vote. Did I tell you that guy's a Republican? I'm pretty sure I mentioned that. So now, how many polling places were shut down, by the way, due to coronavirus? Well, normally there's about 100. In this case, there's only about 13, but that's okay because most people have mail-in ballots, and so that's a good thing, right? I want all mail-in voting, and they actually made sure Gavin Newsom had made sure that everyone was mailed a ballot. So now, again, when it comes to Donald Trump and when it comes to many Republicans, not all, but many Republicans, they say, well, vote by mail is not secure, leads to a lot of voter fraud. And if it happens, and this is what Trump admitted, that, this is a situation where a Republican could never get elected again if we have easy voting. He's saying he's saying the quiet part out loud. Now, Newsom, as I said before, he already put out these mail-in ballots, and Donald Trump's tweet addressed that as well, saying that's the fraud. That's the fraud. Okay, so now here's the thing: Trump and many Republicans, as I said, do think that there's lots of fraud, but not all of them. Some actually are making the argument that we should do all mail-in voting as a result of coronavirus. So people like Christian Leinbach, who's a Republican official who's in favor of this, he told the Philadelphia Inquirer that his own party's arguments are outweighed by the public health crisis. Quote, I'm a conservative Republican. I have conservative Republican friends who believe that's a really bad idea. I don't. I believe we need to make voting in the current health crisis as safe as possible. And so, of course, mail-in voting. Now, here's the thing. There's actually little evidence that mail-in voting increases the amount of voter fraud. In fact, it's actually really safe and secure, so much so that our military members use it all the time. The millions of votes are cast by mail. So it's fine. Now, I think that mail-in voting should be an option all the time. And most Americans agree, most Democrats agree, right? Now, what's funny is that they actually polled some people, right? And they polled Republicans, and a lot of Republicans agree, unless for one thing and one thing only, one factor. The ones who watch Fox News are more, say they're more against voting by mail. If you watch Fox News, you are generally against it. I mean, it's of course because Fox News lies all the time, about, of course, voter fraud. And so they, of course, echo the president, or is the president echoing Fox News? It's the chicken and the egg problem, really, because both of them feed into each other. And so they both say voting by mail is bad. We should not do vote by mail, even though we're in the middle of a pandemic and, of course, outside of a pandemic, because it's just not going to work. It's not secure, etc., when there's no factual information to back that up. But back to Trump and the other reason that he's against putting up this voting booth. So since he shoots down the vote by mail idea and says it's terrible, well, you should at least be in favor of them putting up another voting polling place, right? Especially when coronavirus has shut down so many. Oh, but his problem is, well, it's in the black area. There's too many blacks that are going to vote. We can't have voting things. We can't have voting booths there or polling places. Well, again, that's admitting the quiet part out loud. He doesn't want black people voting. Yes, and it's because he's an old school racist. And he knows, like the Republican Party knows, that generally when black people vote, they tend to, not all the time, of course, but they tend to vote more Democratic. Now, the reason for that isn't because the Democrats is necessarily better when it comes to black issues. I mean, you look at, economic issues in the black community, it's not so great, right? But Democrats don't punch black people in the face. I'm not saying literally, they're figuratively, right? Like the Republican Party does. And so, yeah, they're going to go with the people that don't punch them in the face, because at least it's slightly better. But again, the Democrats have issues, especially in addressing the economic situation inside of black neighborhoods. But at least, again, they're not figuratively punching them in the face. And so, but as far as Trump is concerned, Trump, he's against democracy. He's against democracy because he doesn't believe in democracy. And it's because, like a lot of Republicans have noted, going all the way back with Paul Weyrich and the Goo syndrome, right? That the more people vote, the less likely it is, and the easier time people are able to vote, the less chances there are of a Republican to win an office. And that's just a sad fact of it. All right. Anyway, that's all I've got time for. I'll save the Keystone XL story for tomorrow. So thank you. A lot of comments here. Harriet Gar adds, Dems screw everyone too. Yeah, they screw over black people, and I didn't discount that. They just don't literally, well, I guess not literally, but they don't, generally try to punch black people in the face. They will, of course, lie to them and, a little bit of gaslighting, etc. That, oh no, we're going to help the black community, but they never do. So all that. But anyway, that said, yeah. Thank you for tuning in. Please like and share the stream. Please consider subscribing to the channel or becoming a channel member or patron to help sustain independent progressive media. Hopefully you guys were all right with my Jeb Bush energy today. I'll have more sleep tomorrow, I hope. All right, guys. Thank you. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. See you guys later.
Please clap.
Wait. You're getting nervous, man.
Oh, man, I'm sorry.
Mike Pounds.
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.